Wild Hearts is what we're here to talk about today. The moment I saw that trailer, I was like, I got to get Arekkz on a call and get him to talk about this with me. So now I brought Arekkz over. How you doing, Arekkz?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. You know what? It's funny. Like as soon as the trailer dropped, and then I saw my Discord and I saw a notification before I even saw your message. I was like, I know,
I know what
happen.
that is.
I know what it is, and it's good. I'm glad. I'm excited to chat about it because you know what? I know like there's been mixed receptions around it, but like I was super excited from what I saw. It seems like you were as well. So yeah, definitely. I'm ready to chat.
It's like the thing about it is the first thing that we need to talk about is obviously Electronic Arts. Everybody's going to be like, it's yay, it's terrible, it's going to go horrific, it's not going to be a good experience, right? And I understand, and in a way, EA has kind of worked to deserve that sentiment from people in a lot of ways. But one of the things that gave me hope, and I talked about this before I even saw the trailer, because like they announced on a press release and they talked about it a while ago before we even knew the actual name of the game, was the one thing that gave me a little bit of hope was the fact that it was published under EA Originals.
Yeah.
And the EA Originals label usually does not interfere as much with the development. Like you see the stuff that comes from Hazelight Studios, like It Takes Two and A Way Out. And those games, in my opinion, were very much pro-consumer in the fact that you can even get one of them and then you get a license to a friend and both of you can play the entire game together.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
You didn't know that? Yeah.
No, that's really cool.
So because those games are basically designed to be played in co-op, they cannot be played single player at all. It just does not work. You have to play it in co-op. So what they do is you buy it once, one person, and then you can share it with anyone that you want. And so long as they're playing with you, because you have the license, they can play the whole game with you. The entirety of the game.
That's fantastic. That's really I did not know that. That is really cool.
Yeah, so that is one of the things that gives me hope because that is one of the games that is published under the EA Originals. Another game is Unravel 2. I mean, just Unravel and Unravel 2. I'm not sure if you've heard of those.
I played the original one. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. The little doll and thing. I was actually at the presentation at that E3 when the little dude came out with his doll and he was like all shaky and started crying on stage and stuff. It was really cool. But so that's one of the things that gave me hope. That's not to say that, it's guaranteed it's going to be awesome. Like, we don't know.
No, but no, you're definitely right. Like, that's definitely a good thing to call out. Like, it's EA Originals, I guess, is somewhat like you could almost like make parallels between like ID at Xbox. They're kind of that sort of that initiative that's like, let's work with. It's not always indie developers. Sometimes indie developers. Sometimes it's bigger developers. But like, it's kind of more just like let's work on the sort of different ideas and those kinds of things. And it's more so just like a from a support point of view. And I think a lot of people need to remember as well is that like EA Originals are publishing it. Like Koei Tecmo are still obviously the developers. That doesn't mean to say a publisher doesn't have some sort of hand in things. Like obviously they still can, but it still is important to remember this isn't being developed by EA. This is being developed by Koei Tecmo, whom of course have got a history. Obviously this is Omega Force, so it's more warrior stuff, but you know Koei Tecmo experience with Tolkien and stuff. So it's like it's a series and a genre that they have been in before, so it's not actually as like crazy as say conversely when like Dauntless was announced, it's like here's an unknown developer making a hunting game. That's if anything more wild than like Koei Tecmo partnering with EA because they just need some budget so they can make it happen.
Yeah, and I think one of the big deals of Koei Tecmo partnering with them is because, like you said, they actually have experience. And it was an interesting thing if you read the press release. They talk about like Dynasty Warriors and other Musou games, but they don't bring up Tokiden. And I'm like, how can you talk about all of these games and not bring up Tokiden? Like, how does that make any sense, right?
I'm guessing it's probably because, probably from like two parts. Like, obviously, Omega Force is more like, they probably didn't have as much involvement in that. And it might also be one of those things that Tokiden, because like, obviously EA being like, let's kind of push this to the West, give more people, like, let them know about it. It's a lot easier to say, yo, Dynasty Warriors, and most people will be like, even if I haven't played it, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Whereas if you like say Tolkien, they're like, so, Tolkien what? Like it used to be like, same with Monster Hunter, they'd be like, what is Monster Hunter? Like, you know, so they probably want to pick the game that people can connect with. So,
and I think that is precisely the reason why they're teaming up with EA. And because Tokiden, for people that don't know, Tokiden is a hunting game. For all I've even called it at some point like a more arcadey version of Monster Hunter because there's not as much resource management to it. Like I played a big chunk of Tokiden. I'm not sure if you've played it or not.
Little bit, not too much, but a little bit.
Yeah, I played a huge chunk of it. I was really into it, like made a bunch of videos about it. And I've also played Tokiden 2, which by the way, there's a mechanic in that one which is like this spirit claw that you have, which very much reminds you of like the clutch claw that we later got in Iceborne.
Amazing. Shame they didn't call it Tuki then, though. A missed opportunity.
Oh my god!
That's why I didn't play it, because I was like, there was a pun. They didn't use it. I'm not there.
Okay, yeah, I'm not playing. Can't believe you didn't call it Tuki. But yeah, so they've developed Tokiden, and they've actually now said in some interviews that they cited Tokiden as their experience, even though they didn't cite it in press release and whatnot. I've seen a couple of interviews where they talk about, well, we have worked in this hunting genre before. We've made this game called Tokiden. And then people started asking, but why isn't this Tokiden 3? And they're like, because we wanted to release something for the West. And that's the thing. Tokiden came out, and it was one of those games that very much like Monster Hunter in the past is like, okay, so first it comes out in Japan, and then like a year later or so, then it comes out in the West. And then it comes out in the West in the Vita.
Yep.
So it's like, what other games do we know that came out in the Vita and died? I mean, there's this little game called Soul Sacrifice that me and Gaijin have been trying to like get everyone to take a look at. But yeah, it's like, so that's one of the reasons why Tokiden, a lot of people don't know nearly as much about it, because I think that Tokiden is actually a pretty good game, and I enjoyed my time with it. And so this team does have experience in the genre, and this game has actually been in development for 4 years now.
Okay.
Do you remember how long Monster Hunter World was in development for?
I don't.
It was 4 years.
It
was 4 years, yes. At least from what I can remember, it was also 4 years. Now, one of the things that I can really appreciate about this announcement, because like a lot of times, you know how companies come out, like for instance, you look at a Bethesda and they're like, oh yeah, we're working on Starfield. See you guys like next decade or something like that. And here it was like, here's the trailer. Like they started talking about it like a couple of weeks ago. It was the first time that I saw it, I think. And now they released the trailer, and then immediately, and here's the release date, comes out in February.
Yeah. That I was very, I feel like they kind of need to do that, because I feel like we're in a very interesting position where, like, obviously, you know, there might not be as many people playing like Rise and Sunbreak as there were World, but still, Monster Hunter is without question, you know, the gold standard in this genre. Yeah. So, and I feel like everyone obviously, you know, like knows that clearly, with one team working on Sunbreak, the other team must be working on whatever is going to follow World. Like it's fair to say that is clearly going to happen, right? Like it's a big seller for Capcom, and I feel like these guys clearly know, like, if we're going to get this game out, it probably needs to get out before like Monster Hunter 6, and like we need to put a date, we need to put a stake in the ground, because if they were just like, comes out next year, and then Capcom are like, Monster Hunter 6 comes out next year, they're just like, dead. Like, we're not even going to entertain this thing. So, like, them being like, we need to strike early, we need to strike fast, like, we need to give people a chance to see that this is a good game, and this is, like, well, hopefully, and then give them opportunity, then I feel like, because I still think, you know, whatever Monster Hunter's going to follow, like, it's still going to be quite a way off. So, yeah, I think it's good being like, new game, thing that you're potentially unsure about, it's out soon, we're not going to keep you waiting for a while, let's go. Like, that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I think they did that very, very well. So the trailer finally came out. I actually had a vote in regards to the monsters, which are called Ketomo. I had a vote. They've put out artwork for like 4 monsters, if I remember. There was the wolf, the pig, the bird, and what was the other one that I'm forgetting? Wolf, pig,
Stone
bird.
Monkey?
And Stone Monkey. So which one was
there's more. There's wolf, there's pig, there's bird, there's stone monkey, there's the little rat with the tail that makes the little sakura tree, and there's also the very brief one when they're using the bow. There's another like mouse creature with like tentacles on its face.
Yeah, it's got like 6. It's almost like trees coming out in his face. Yeah, but it's like, I'm talking about the art that they revealed. Which one was your favorite from the artwork that they revealed?
Stone monkey.
Of course.
Of course, it's gotta be. I'm the Rajan guy. I'm the monkey guy. Like you give me like an ape in one of these games, I'm like, done. And plus, the bull just reminded me of Bulldrome, and there's too many bad memories. I can't do it.
I love little piggy. I love the pig. I thought the pig was so cool. His name was King Tusk. I thought it was kind of cool. But I put the vote up for my chat at the time. I was streaming the whole thing. Who do you think won?
I'm gonna say either the wolf.
You got it. Don't say anything else.
It's predictable. It's like give it to Monster Hunter people. They're like, hey, it's like Zenoga. I'm voting for it. It's like, you guys are predictable.
Yeah, it was the wolf that won, and the pig was the last one. I was like, come on, man, how you gonna do my boy pig dirty like that. Just like the last one, dead last. But from what we've seen in the trailer, like I thought the monsters look really cool. They're calling it Ketomo, and they say that it is a fusion of animals that actually exist with nature.
Yeah. Oh, wait, wasn't it Kemono? Because it's like a short version of Bakemono, right? Bakemono is like monster, and Kemono is supposedly.
Oh, it was it was probably Kimono because it could be. I confuse it with Kimono. I don't know where I got Ketomo from. It's because I don't know Japanese as well as you, and I'm glad you're here to correct me. Yeah,
Kimono was them, and the thing we'll speak on later, which is the construction thing, is the
Karakuri. Yeah.
But yeah,
I remember.
I thought it was cool, and yeah, the infusion with nature is really cool. We definitely saw it from like Pig Boy, of course, when he like did that whole like the vines coming out, which looked really cool.
Yeah, it was like the really neat animation and stuff, and the action from the gameplay that you've seen so far. Like, what you thought about it? Because it was only little snippets. There's going to be an actual longer gameplay trailer on the 5th of October, and I'll talk about that later as well. But like, from what we've seen so far, what you thought about it?
I actually really, really liked it. Like, again, like you say, like it's obviously only snippets, and they always do this in trailers. They kind of supercut the most exciting bits. But honestly, just like, you know, the movement from the very first shot of like that hunter walking through like the yellow flower field towards the boar, like that sheer sense of scale. The movement initially looked pretty cool. Like I liked the whole when they were doing the aerial combos as well. The fact you were jumping up in the air with the umbrella attacking and stuff. Which I thought was like super cool as well. So from like the limited attacks, and especially like the ones where one of the things that I really want to see, like we didn't quite get confirmation of things, I'm not too sure yet, but when we saw the hunter using the little copter to go towards the boar and like lands near its back and slashes, I'm like, I didn't quite see whether he could grab on, but like if we can get a Dragon's Dogma style hold on to the monsters, because they are very big. That's one of the things as well. Like Monster Hunter does have big monsters, but I feel like relative to the Hunter, a lot of them are not quite that sense of scale. Whereas this time they've gone pretty big for these things. So I feel like that is interesting. But I think from the little snippets I've seen, definitely I'm intrigued.
What if I had the answer to that question, Arekkz?
Oh,
tell me more. I've been looking at interviews, and one of the interviews, I think it was the IGN one, there was a specific quote where they said, players can not only perform dashing, jumping, grappling, sliding, and other actions required in today's action games, but they can further enhance the performance of their actions by making full use of the Karakuri system. So they imply that there is going to be grappling as well, even though we didn't really see it.
Oh, now that is... I was... unless they mean grappling by, you know, like the little like wooden things they fire at that like fires the grappling hook into
the grappling hooks. Yeah, they might mean that, but it's like...
I hope.
Taken into account that it's being brought in the context of dashing, jumping, and sliding, and it's just like in the middle of that, I kind of feel like that implies a character action of them being able to grip onto the monsters and actually do something. I'll be very curious to see what that ends up being. But during that presentation, one of the things that we've noticed is that they only showed 3 characters. So I checked in the interviews; they confirm it is going to be only 3-player co-op. Where do you land on that?
I honestly don't really mind too much. I mean, I feel like these days, like, you know, I'm used to 4 from Monster Hunter, but then having said that, similarly, I've played lots of other like multiplayer kind of games like Destiny or things like that, where I'm used to 3-player teams as well. So I feel like as well, when it kind of comes to like friend groups, like sometimes you obviously have the full 4 squad, but like there have definitely been a lot of times where I've just had like 3 people to play with. So I feel like 3 and 4, to be honest, for me, this is much of a muchness. So I'm just like, as long as there's enough people to play with. I think 3 also feels big enough to be like a team, whereas if it was just 2, it would be like, it's just co-op.
It's just co-op, yeah.
Yeah, so I like it.
What they've said is that it was something about the way that it felt, because they tried 4-player co-op, and they said something about, it was about the balancing and the experience that you were getting. I kind of feel like maybe with 4, they were overpowering the monsters maybe a little bit too much, and then if you ramp it up and if you have less, they just kind of beat you down. I don't know, but I'm just looking, for instance, at what we have for Monster Hunter, where when you have 4 people in something like Sunbreak, you can just bully the monster, and there's very little that the monster can do if you know what you're doing. So,
I think also as well, just to add to that though, I think you're probably right. Like if they test it as well, given that they do have this Karakuri system, like if you have 4 people constructing like wooden devices all over the thing, it also probably get like, imagine 4, like, you know, the hammer we saw that hits the bird.
Yeah.
Imagine like bam, 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 bam. It's like, this is a bit insane now. There needs to be some balance.
I thought the hammer was so good. We got to talk more about the Karakuri, but before that, the weapons. So we talked about the monsters already that they showed in the trailer. I think the monsters looked cool. The big stone one, like it's almost like a Zora Magdaros thing coming up, like big friggin' stone turtle.
Yeah.
I thought that thing was wild. How the hell are we supposed to fight that? Like, that's going to be insane.
I wonder if it will be like a Zora Magdaros kind of experience where like you're on its back for a while and you like go through different nodes and like that would be cool. Maybe you maybe you construct a hammer right on his head and he goes bonk
bonk bonk.
He's like,
just just like repeatedly using a karakuri on his head. Badonk, badonk, badonk.
Yes.
So out of the 3 weapons, I believe we only saw 3 weapons in that trailer that I at least could identify, which was the bow, the parasol, and the katana. Which one was your favorite?
So, well, I'm gonna like definitively say the katana.
Of
I'll
course.
get to it in a second. But I really liked the parasol, the umbrella, because I feel like in these kinds of games, that was also why, like, although I didn't have too much experience with Tokiden, that's what originally got me to check the game out, because it had a lot of like different weapon styles, which was kind of cool. So like in games like this, you know, we're used to seeing like longsword, greatsword, hammer. Like anytime there's a different style of weapon, like that was super cool, especially with like the little blades around it, and the fact that like you can sort of like jump in the air and like slash slash slash. So I wonder if you can use it to like float. However, the sheer fact that, assuming they're the same weapon, assuming it's not like a longsword and then like a chain blade, but the fact that the katana broke into like an Ivy style whip, I was like, whew, that
whip
is
sword.
Clean. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, out of those weapons, I have to go with the katana as well, even though I'm not a longsword. It's just like, I don't see myself using the parasol. But I will tell you, something that was really cool about the weapons in Tokiden, for instance, is that you had, you know, the kusarigama with the counterweight and stuff? Mm-hmm. You had one like that. And what it would enable you to do in that game is you would actually be able to climb up the monster. It's not an actual grappling system, but you'd be able to like throw the thing and then pull yourself towards the monster. And then when you get to it, you'd be able to use an attack to kind of like climb up and do aerial combos. And then you can kind of like keep climbing up while you had stamina. It was wild. It was like a completely different playstyle from all of the other weapons. So I can vouch for their experience in terms of like providing people with different playstyles. I even played ranged weapons in that game. It was so wild.
What?
Yeah, I was playing. There was a weapon that they had, which they added, I think, in Kiwami, which was a rifle. So I was just running around with a rifle, and the thing is, there's no ammo management whatsoever. You just get to shoot and do crazy things with it. So I was like, pow, just like sniping stuff off of monsters. It was great. You could break parts with it. So like you could just like aim at, for instance, the tail chop. Because in that game, you can rip off arms straight up from monsters. And then they get like spirit arms to make up for it. So I could be like across the map and be going like, pow. And you'd be like fighting in melee and you just see his arm pop off.
That's amazing.
So Tokiden has a lot of really cool things like that. I'm not sure what they're implementing from that, but they do know how to make weapons feel like kind of unique and stuff. So that's going to be a cool aspect to it. I hope.
Yeah, definitely.
But then we have the crazy build contraption. Some people have referred to this as like Monster Hunter Fortnite.
I feel like that's such a like silly comparison. Like I feel like I mean I get like what people are saying, but I think it's one of those like really like sometimes you see this in gaming where like people just don't play enough games and they see one thing and they'll be like, oh, it's building. Fortnite invented building. It's like there have been so many games. Like I could say it's like Lemmings meets Monster Hunter because you build in Lemmings. I could say it's like, I don't know, like the bridge construction game. There are so many games where you build just because Fortnite has popularized building and like, you know, it's that kind of fast construction thing. Like I can understand the comparison, but I think it's a bit of a lazy comparison to be honest. It's like it's nothing to do with Fortnite. It's just, you build something cool, like that's it.
It's like the old Dark Souls of where basically mainstream media just started saying everything. Does this game have a dodge button? Do you use the bumper buttons to attack? Okay, it's like Dark Souls then. It's like,
and you die. It's a Dark Souls game.
It's a Dark Souls game. So it's like everything became a Dark Souls game, and Fortnite's super popular, so it's like a way to explain it. But like, so the karakuri, I like the thing that they put in detail. Because it also, like, you see a big zoom in on, like, some circular thing that they have in their hands.
On the clutch claw.
The clutch claw, yes.
Yeah.
It almost looked like wire bugs if you look at it, because it's like a blue glowing line.
Yeah.
But so you have that, and that enables you to create things. So one of the first things that we see is a very basic one. It's just like a little platform. He creates a platform, gets on top of it, jumps to do like a jumping attack. I think that's like the most basic of basic things. But then you can build on top of that, and those things get really wild. Like we talked about the hammer. We talked about
Yeah.
the helicopter. Like the helicopter was the most surprising thing to me. He just climbs up the thing and then he helicopters on. I'm like, what is this? This is so
It's
weird.
so cool. It's like I can't remember what it was, like I saw in the comments like when someone made it like one of the best descriptions. They were like, this is like an evil villain from like an 80s cartoon. There's like little helicopters like like it's literally that. But I love it. It's so cool because it kind of like reminds me of sort of like the glider in Breath of the Wild as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. So what do you think the mechanic is going to be for that? Because there's no way that you're going to be able to just like keep building. Do you think that it's going to be like a cooldown type thing or maybe a resource based thing? What do you think is going to make more sense?
I feel like it's I feel like maybe a combination of both. I feel like there'd definitely be like a cooldown element to it, but I feel like resource thing could be kind of cool because like we obviously don't know the scope of this game. Like right now we've seen it in quite sort of limited areas, but like they have one of those scenes at the beginning which is like the hunter standing looking across this huge like open vista. I feel like sometimes that's kind of the typical like open worldy thing they do to try and give you a sense of scale. So it's like, is it going to be sort of very Monster Hunter like where it's like load into mission, defeat this monster, go back to base? Or is it going to be like wander around this big world, gather some resources, do this, that, and the other, and then suddenly you encounter them? And if it's more like that, it could be that, say, I don't know, maybe we have to like chop wood to go and be able to build a number of like, it could be like a pre-hunt preparation. Like, have you got enough stuff to craft these? So I think something like that would definitely be interesting. But I feel like there's also probably going to be some kind of cooldown / like build limit. Like if you think about things like Little Big Planet or like Dreams, where there's like a like you can only have so many because that's probably also why they had a player cap. Like you can't have people building like 50 million like jumping platforms and something. So
to give you a little bit of context as to how it worked in Toki, then there you would equip something called a mitama, and each mitama would have like a certain number of powers. So you'd have mitamas that would be kind of like spell casters. Think of them almost as RPG classes. So some mitamas would be spellcasters, other mitamas would be warriors and stuff like that. And depending on which one you equipped, you'd be able to like give yourself buffs. So the warrior one would buff your attack and stuff like that. The caster one would allow you to actually cast ranged spells at the monster. And all of them would also have like a healing spell because there are effectively no consumable items in Tokiden. So you just use the powers of these mitama. That is what your resources that you have available to you. And you recharge them by purifying monsters. So like, say, for instance, you can kill a small monster and you purify that monster and that gives you some charges to your spells. Or you break off a part of a big monster, you purify that part, that gives you recharge to your spell. So in there weren't like any hard consumables. It was mostly a cooldown-based system with recharges and stuff like that. That's how it worked there. How it's going to work here, I have no idea because this is going to be a different game. But, just to give people a little bit more context in regards to that.
Maybe if it's like Fortnite, they're going to give us a pickaxe and be like, bam, 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 grab the wood. Here we go, Karakuri.
It's like going around the world bashing everything and it'll be fine. So the one thing from Karakuri that we didn't talk about was the binding shot ballista. There's also a ballista that does a binding shot, and they had like
super cool.
2 or 3 ones coming at it and like binding the monster. So those I definitely feel like need to have a cooldown because otherwise it's broken, overpowered.
Yeah, 100%. I wonder if it'll be similar to like Monster Hunter where like they have like once you've done it once, like the next time around they don't stay trapped as long. They just break off the cable or something. So that would be. There was actually like an interesting like 4th one they used sort of earlier in the trailer where it was basically just like they constructed like a wall, but like the monster like ran into it. I'm not sure whether that's just because they constructed like a pillar, but there was like it looked almost like they built a few around. Was it? I can't remember whether it was the wolf they were fighting or something, but basically he collided with it and it was like a little explosion and they sort of knocked back a bit. So
there was actually a bomb. I forgot to put that one in here.
Oh, and the bomb as well. And
there was a bomb. Yeah, dude. The bomb is going to be the one that I'm going to do. That's it. It's like, what's your main weapon?
Yeah.
I do the bomb Karakuri.
I like the countdown as well. It reminds me of you remember that game you played as a kid, like the daggers in the pirate barrel. It's like
and then it explodes.
I love that game.
Yeah, but I think the Karakuri are going to be interesting. I think it's going to be like one of their defining features. Obviously, they're going to have weapons and attacks and all these other things, but I think the Karakuri is really going to be what sets it apart. Because one of the things is this is also going to be used for you to navigate the world of the game. They said that is going to allow you to access areas that you won't be able to access otherwise without them.
Ooh, okay. Now that's I'm going to be the copter guy. I'm like,
just like flying everywhere.
That's just me. That's just you'll be like fighting a monster, and you'll be like, "Who's this guy flying?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's me."
So the thing about the maps, you were talking earlier about potentially being an open world. According to what they've said in one of the interviews, it is not going to be an open world. They toyed with the idea, but they ended up opting to go with something else. Now, this part is weird because the translation that I have of this is not perfect, and I actually had a German person look at it, and he says, "No, the translation is pretty much what it says here." So I don't know what exactly this means. My interpretation of this is there is one map, supposedly one big map, but there's 4 seasons. And the map changes depending on the season that you're in. That is the interpretation that I have, but I'm going to read you the exact quote. So they say, Wild Hearts is set in Japan, and we have the concept of 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each season is huge on the map. See, that's the part that I don't get. Each season is huge on the map. It almost makes you think that there's one map and then there's like 4 seasons, almost like guiding lands. But I don't think that's what it is. I think it would make more sense one big map and then it's seasonal. So technically speaking, it's like 4 maps, but it's like similar layout. It's just weird that they're kind of, according to what I've seen so far in interviews, it appears to be like one map. But it all depends on size, because like Guiding Lands is one map, but it was pretty big. So I don't know.
That's the thing. Like if it, or you think about how like I mean, I guess they did have a couple maps, but you think about some of the like world style maps. It's like obviously World had a few maps, but you had like the one map was pretty big, and like sometimes you might do a hunt and you're only really in like 2 quadrants, and then but sometimes you go further around. So if it's like a big enough one map, and then the seasons do drastically change the way things look, then hopefully that's not too bad. But yeah, definitely that's obviously a thing to find out about, because if it wasn't huge and then suddenly you're like, I'm fighting everything in the same area, then it would get a little bit But I mean, but then also surely it's got to be decently big, because if you're having to use Karakuri to actually get around the map, like you wouldn't use that on a tiny scale map. So maybe that's an indication of like scope potentially. Yeah,
exactly. So it all boils down to how big does the map need to be for the experience to be cool. There's also like other considerations to take into, which is like, for instance, in the footage that we've seen so far, which again is very little, we see the monsters in one area. Do they move areas? Is the area basically one arena where you just go in there and you fight the monster to the death in that arena? Because I feel like one of the interesting things about Monster Hunter is how the monsters move zones. In Toki, then they also moved zones, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, but no, I agree, definitely. Yeah, I think they definitely need to move, because if they didn't, that would go even further to like make things smaller. Be like, oh, Boar is always here, like Stone Monkey is always here. Then it's like, but yeah. So hopefully.
Yeah, one of the things they said is as 3 players, you're able to basically stay in the same lobby and keep basically going at it. It's not like super separated, so to speak, so you can play and experience the whole story together, which I think is cool. But we'll see how that pans out. The rest of the quote basically said, within the map, you can even use Karakuri to unlock hidden locations, which I had already mentioned. But yeah, that is most of the information that we currently have, with the exception of one thing, which is everyone's big concern, which is obviously going to be like, okay, so this is EA, and even Koei Tecmo, if you go look at some of their games, like some of their games have tremendous amounts of microtransactions. Like ridiculous. So what do you think is going to be the microtransaction? Before I tell you what it's going to be, I'm going to try and get a prediction. What do you think is going to be the microtransaction situation in Wild Hearts?
I mean, one part of me, despite the fact that EA is associated with it, is like, I'm going to kind of assume maybe there's not going to be microtransactions, because they're selling it as a full price game. But if they were going to do it, like I feel like people know you can't buy power. People know you can't buy stuff, and EA have had experience with this before. So surely, if you're going to buy something, it will just be cosmetics or something.
So this particular website made the question specifically: will there be an in-game shop for something like skins? We can't reveal anything about DLCs just yet. However, we have no plans to offer in-game purchases at release.
Okay.
At release.
Yes.
So
okay.
It's like, they'll probably offer them at some point, but at release, apparently that is not going to be the case. They also talked about the duration of the campaign, which they said if you just do the main story, it'll be about 30 hours. But if you if you want to actually do hunts and min-max and stuff like that, you can play for over 100 hours is what they're saying.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's gonna be. I mean, I guess with any of these games, it's gonna be down to like number of armor sets, number of monsters, number of weapons, number of like customization. Like there's so many things like are we gonna be like fixed moveset or like unlockability. So there's definitely lots of things like that. But it's definitely. I mean, okay, the wording of like at launch obviously isn't as definitive as people would like it to be. Yeah. But again, like I feel like there are certain models that people have come to accept, like provided again it's not going to be like I guess that the differentiating factor is going to be like, oh, if they release the game and they've got X number of monsters and then in the future they start adding monsters and then they start making you pay for them and it's a full price game, then people are going to be like, oh well, in Monster Hunter you get all these things free, and they're going to start making those direct comparisons. So I guess it really depends on like what you sell. We do know that people are generally okay with like skins to a degree. But yeah, we definitely have to wait and see. So I guess, but the fact that it's not a launch, like at least we can hopefully start with a. Yeah.
It's like the fact that they say, hey, look, at launch, we're not going to nickel and dime you. That to me is already an improvement on what we've seen from so many games nowadays. Like, I don't know if you've been keeping up, for instance, with Diablo 4, but Jesus Christ, the surveys they're sending out and the potential things that are going to go down at launch with Diablo 4, it is looking absolutely disgusting. There's going to be like a 3-tier battle pass, and there's like all of these like cosmetics. They already have like, I don't know, 6 or 7 cosmetic armors designed, and I'm like, bro, games coming out like at some point next year. You're already talking to me about these cosmetic armors.
That's
yeah. So it's like I'm not against them eventually selling you cosmetics if they're planning on potentially bring in more DLC monsters, which is a question that they didn't answer. It was asked of them, like, what are your plans for DLC? And there is not even an answer. There's like, they decided they didn't want to answer this question. So it's
fair enough.
So I think that's fair. And here's the thing, like if they're going to adapt something similar to a Monster Hunter model where it's like, hey, a couple of months after launch, here's like 2 new monsters or something like that, maybe a little bit more grind to do. I'm not against having cosmetics in a store, so long as we get something of like similar value that you can acquire by just playing the game, right? If you just lock cosmetics exclusively in a store, I'm like, that kind of sucks, But it's like if you have an option in game where it's like, okay, there's like 10 cosmetic things that you can get in the game. Here's one that you can buy in the store. I'm like, all right, that's kind of like okay, yeah.
Yeah, sort of like Guild Wars model. Like they had like a few things that were like tied to the store, but there's still plenty of cool stuff you get in game and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, so after I did all of this research, I myself, for instance, I am hyped for the game. I do believe that people should temper their expectations and not get like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Let's go. Let's everybody pre-order the thing. Blah, blah. I'm like, listen, as with every game, you should always wait and like see what it, particularly if you're not comfortable, like a lot of people are not comfortable with EA right now. I think you should definitely wait and see what happens, like what reviews are like. Obviously, you are going to be reporting on it. I'm going to be reporting on it. I'm assuming a lot of people in the Monster Hunter community are going to be reporting on it. So there will be a lot of sources of information, and then you can make your decision. But initially, particularly after them just straight up saying there's no in-game purchases at release, I was like, wow, that's a bold statement.
One of the other things as well, one of the big things that we forgot to touch on today as well is they confirmed crossplay.
Oh, right.
Crossplay between PC, PS5, Xbox, which people have been asking for the longest time in Monster Hunter. And
yes.
And it's also the good thing as well, where like even on PC, the fact that normally they'll be like, oh, okay, I have to play this on Origin, or like I'm tied to Epic. It's like Steam, Epic, Origin, pick your platform, play it anywhere, crossplay. I'm like, damn. Like that's what I'm talking about.
And that is one of the things. Yeah, I did forget to type that down, but I did saw it when on the day, and I think that is extremely important because there's so many games that benefit tremendously from that. Like to an extent, even Dauntless. Dauntless has full crossplay across everything, including Switch. Which is just like, what?
Yeah,
you can be playing Switch and Xbox and PlayStation and PC. Like, that is wild. And these guys are basically going for the same thing, even though it's not on Switch. But, the game does look very visually demanding, so it's not particularly surprising.
Yeah, I mean, the fact they're also like just targeting next-gen systems as well, that just kind of goes to show. But, you're definitely right. I definitely think it's huge for games because, we've seen like multiverses, obviously, that's cross-platform as well. And I think a lot of these times, that's like a barrier to people because it is going to be a tricky one because next gen consoles are not like super accessible still right now. And obviously the price point, but a lot of people sometimes will be like, oh, I was gonna buy it, but my friends can't play. So like now that's obviously a limiter removed. So it's gonna be, yeah.
Outriders, I
depending
think.
how good it is.
Outriders, I think did the same thing. They were like super
Oh, okay.
cross-platform everything. So, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, that's pretty much all of the information we have about the game
Yeah.
right now. I had to dig through tons of interviews trying to get literally everything, but
Yeah.
I think it paints a pretty decent picture. But we'll see what
100%.
happens. I mean, we're gonna have more information on the 5th, and then we'll see what happens in February when it actually comes out. But I think it's
Yeah.
looking good.
Yeah, I definitely think. I think next week is going to be a really, really telling thing, because I think especially in these kinds of games, like one of the make or break as well, which is why like Dauntless never clicked with me, and hopefully, I guess we won't really see it until we get to play it, but like hopefully it still somewhat shows in the video next week, but is like hit lag with weapons,
Yeah.
right? Like if your Dauntless was literally like cutting through paper, and I was like, I can't enjoy the feel of this, but if it's like if they can nail that, then it could be interesting. So yeah, definitely, definitely carefully watching this space.
It's basically animation weight is what I describe to that. You need to feel like a meaty weapon slashing through a monster and not the
not just
the
like
rest.
paper. Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Arekkz, what are you working on next?
What am I working on next? Well, at the time of recording this video, of course, title update 2
Title
just dropped
update
for Monster
2.
Hunter.
Yep.
So just rendering out our impressions on that, and just like a few videos messing around with some of the new armor sets. So probably that, and then yeah, next week I'll be also watching the gameplay reveal. So it's a little bit on Wild Hearts as well.
So very, very quickly, just for people that are tuning in from Monster Hunter, what are your quick thoughts on title update 2?
I really like it. I really like the new monsters. Hella cool. Flaming Espinas is my boy. I like Espinas. Purple Mizu, even though I'm a Mizu hater, like Mizu is moderately exciting. I'll give it that. Risen Chameleos, kind of cool. Like I'm like the Risen system was kind of cool. I'm not a big fan of Chameleos. I didn't think it was as different or challenging as I thought it would be, but I enjoyed it. But I love the armor from Risen Chameleos. Oh my gosh, the way it perfectly slots with Golden Rathian to make the status synergy. Whew, I am like, it's like already in Title Update 1, I was like, this is the best data set. Now they're like, oh, hold my beer. And now I'm just like, I'm loving it. I'm like, that armor permutation is spicy.
I hadn't even checked, but when I saw the bonus on Chameleos' armor, I was like, I bet this thing goes perfect with Goldian. It has to. There's no way it doesn't.
They're literally like, oh yeah, you just take the helmet, the chest piece, done. It's like pen, pineapple.
Yeah. So I myself, like, I love the update, but it sucks so bad to be a Gunlance main in this update. You're just looking at those Gunlances
still
going.
Giving you like nasty numbers.
I was just looking at them and I'm like, bro, what is it with number 7? Why can't you go? You're like Valve in number 2. You can't get to 3, except here you're at number 7. You can't get to 8 for some strange reason. But yeah, there's nothing for Gunlances this update. I'm so sad.
Well, maybe they're just like, well, because you've got layered weapons, you can still use your old level 8 Gunlance and just paint over it. No one will notice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. Dear. But anyways, that's going to be it, guys. There's going to be links to Arekkz' channel in the description. Make sure to check him out for more title update 2 on Monster Hunter, and obviously next week for the gameplay reveals and all of that. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.
See you later.